How to form the counter postures. In order to learn how the sword and the body should be positioned and when the counter postures should be formed. Chapter 4. Forming a good counter posture means situating the body and the sword in such a way that without touching the opponent's blade, the straight line between the opponent's point and your body is completely defended. This way, without even moving your body or sword, you are assured that the opponent cannot attack the part of your body directly opposite his point. If he wants to strike you at all, he has to first move his sword to another spot, thereby lengthening his tempo and giving you ample time to parry. In order to put yourself at such an advantage, you must situate the sword so that it is stronger than the opponent's and is able to resist effectively at the time of the parry. This rule can and should be observed against all the opponent's postures and mutations, even when the dagger or another defensive weapon accompanies the sword. If you can subtly maintain yourself in this counter posture, you'll have a definite advantage over the opponent. However, it often happens that while you are forming a counter posture, the opponent forms his own against yours. Another frequent occurrence is that you start forming the counter posture while still so far out of measure that the opponent can afford to wait until you have moved your foot against him. In that tempo, while you're trying to get closer, he may change his posture and shut your counter posture out of line with one of his own. It is therefore vital to be rich with different resources, to quickly find an advantageous placement against the opponent and to present him with a new effective counter posture. All of this pertains to a measure that is not quite close enough to enable you to strike the opponent in his mutations, or to the situation where, even within striking distance, the opponent steps back while performing the mutation. In this latter case, although you would originally be within measure, you would not be able to reach him during his mutation. Instead, you should form a new counter posture while stepping forward in the same tempo, thus regaining the former advantage in measure. Along the same lines, always be mindful to form the counter posture while far enough from the opponent that he cannot strike you. Alternatively, if you are already in the Missouri Lager, form your counter posture without moving your feet. In this case, if the opponent takes the tempo and attacks you, you can easily parry and counter or step back so the opponent's sword cannot reach you. Also, if you form your counter posture slowly and the opponent comes forward to attack you, you can easily interrupt the forming of your counter posture and use that tempo to wound him while parrying at the same time. In other words, if your movements are controlled, you can always interrupt the original motion and perform another one as the occasion presents itself. So, if you want to safely gain the measure against the opponent, you should first form a counter posture. And if, instead, you find yourself shut out of line by the opponent's counter posture, step back and break measure instead of approaching the opponent until you find a different avenue to gain this advantage.